All right, so with my first pick, that was so graciously handed to me. With this one, I'm gonna go with the guy who's considered the freak of the NFL. He's been hyped since he was going to the NFL draft. One of the best players on defense in all of football. Jadeveon Clowney. Obviously a big time free agent. He's gonna cost like a big time free agent, but this is the kind of guy that can go to a defense like a Khalil Mack when he's engaged, like a Khalil Mack, like an Aaron Donald. He can change an entire defense. He can change an entire defensive front, and he can affect the game unlike any other player in the NFL. Jadeveon Clowney is going to be my first pick.
Yeah, no, that's a great pick. I mean, he was number 2 on my board. I think that it's actually interesting. He only had 3 sacks last year, but he was so disruptive. You watch the tape, and you're like, how did this guy only get three sacks? Because he just disrupted so many plays. He was so close on so many plays. Just because he's not finishing doesn't mean he's not doing a lot. And definitely, I like the Clowney pick. I think that it'll be interesting to see if Seattle decides to sign him, but definitely a great pick, I think. And so now I have a pick. We'll go on to who I have number 1 on my board, and that is kind of the opposite, kind of the guy who maybe won't blow up the play as much, but when he does get in the backfield, he's going to get a sack, and that's Shaq Barrett. He was the NFL leader in sacks last year. I think that it just listen. This guy led the league in sacks. It's pretty much what people would say is the second most important position in football would be an edge rusher behind quarterback. So I think you got to go with him here. And this just makes sense to me. I don't think he's a one-year wonder. I think the only reason this is his first year is he's doing this is because this is his first year as a starter.
Yeah, I mean, I was a big fan of him this year. I actually had number 3 on my board. Makes a lot of sense. Pass rushers are at a premium. If you get him, you got to pay for him. And I think he's going to be he's an easy franchise tag for me. I don't know why Tampa's taken so long to franchise tag him, honestly.
Yeah.
And, especially when he's only done it 1 year, this seems like perfect for what the franchise tag is built for. You get another year to see if he can play at that production. And if not, you get him at a cheaper deal. I think Shaq Barrett makes a lot of sense for your pick. So we'll go with my number 2 pick. And with this one, I'm going to go with the best defensive back available in the free agent pool. I'm not going to go with Byron Jones here as the best secondary player in free agent. I like a lot of what he does playing a cornerback and safety, but I want a game changer in my secondary. So with my second pick, I'm going to go with Anthony Harris. Led the NFL in interception. I think he was tied with best defensive player in football, Stephon Gilmore, for interceptions last year, which led the league. And I think Anthony Harris is a game changer back there.
Yes, you are never going to let that Stephon Gilmore take go, are you?
I win. I definitely won that one. I think I had that. What did I have that 2 or 3 years ago that I told everybody that Stephon Gilmore was the best, and then it worked out?
It was 2 years ago. You said that he was the best defensive player in football, ahead of guys like Aaron Donald and Khalil Mack, was what you said. That was your take. And I think rightfully called you a moron, which I think was very fair. But you know what? In fairness, he is now a defensive player of the year. Not who I would have given it to, quite frankly, but he won it.
I mean, that Devontae Parker game left a sour taste in everyone's mouth. Mm-hmm. But I think up until that, he was, the biggest game changer on the best defense in football for 16 weeks of the season. I had no problem with the pick. He's still Pro Football Focus's number 1 rated secondary. Or the time I said it, he was the number 1 quarterback by Pro Football Focus, and I think he's in the top 5 again. But back to my pick, Anthony Harris, obviously a game changer in the secondary. He can play that center field role. He's going to make a lot of plays for your defense. I think that's a good pick for my defense I'm building here through free agency.
Yeah, definitely a good pick. Was on my top 5. And now I'm going to go with another guy. This is going to be a left tackle currently playing for the Colts. Is Anthony Costanzo. I think that he's just a great pass blocking left tackle to be on the board. I think that there's going to be so many teams. A tackle is so hard to find, especially a good pass blocker. I just think that if you can find a way to get something like that through free agency, it's so hard to get a good tackle through the draft. So that's why teams love to spend money in free agency to get one, because it is such a wild card. This is a guy who I think will be getting a big payday come free agency.
Is this the guy you're circling for Tampa Bay?
He's someone I'll be very interested in. I think that one of them would have to then move over to right tackle, either him or Smith. But absolutely, I would love if we got him, I would be very happy with that. No doubt about it.
Yeah, this is actually a really good time for a pass blocking offensive lineman because him and Joe Thuney are going to get a huge payday. And I think Joe Thuney was rated as the best pass blocking offensive lineman in football last year. So I'm okay with the pick. Obviously, the tackle position is very important, and Costanzo's obviously a good one. So for my next pick, I'm going a little off the rails here. Number 3 pick. I'm bringing analytics to football here.
Okay.
And if my team's not very good and I need to build through free agency, the best way to do that is to create a lot of turnovers and then shorten the game as much as I can. And the important way, so I have Anthony Harris in the defensive backfield, creating interceptions, Clowney wreaking havoc on the line of scrimmage. Then I'm going right here to the backfield, where I'm going to make this game as quick as possible. I'm going to win this game 10-7, and I'm going to get Derrick Henry.
Okay, definitely.
I don't know how much.
I was gonna say he was number 4 on my board.
I don't know.
Go ahead.
Oh no, sorry. Yeah, I think Derrick Henry, what he put together last year, I think, in guys who went over 160 yards and multiple touchdowns in games, the last person to do it since him was like John Riggins or something like that. So how special his run was over that 4-game stretch speaks to how much of a game changer he can be. Even if I'm getting 2 years of really good Derrick Henry, I'm taking Derrick Henry and I'm, going to run the heck out of the football until his legs are gone.
Yeah, I think signing Derrick Henry is almost the equivalent of putting your life savings on black, where it's like it's either going to work out fantastic or it's going to work out terrible. He's the kind of thing where, I mean, he's obviously an elite running back. He had over 1,500 yards last year, 16 touchdowns. But at the same time, it's the kind of thing where if you pay a running back, they could drop off at any moment, and it's a huge risk, which is why I had him a little bit lower on my board, but he was still top 5 as well. So absolutely, I'm not mad at that pick whatsoever. And now with my number, this is 6th overall, my 3rd pick, I'm going to go Jack Conklin. He's the right tackle, played for the Titans last year, just 25 years old, good run blocking tackle, which does matter. And again, I just think this comes back to the tackle position so important in football. If you can get a good one in free agency that is going to be good, I just think this makes sense.
Yeah, I mean that makes a lot of sense to me too. You can't fault anybody for picking a good offensive lineman, and that's another one there. Which I was going to go with offensive lineman here next, and I'm going with another great pass blocker. Joe Thuney. Obviously, we mentioned him a little bit. One of the best pass blocking linemen in football. He plays a guard, so it's not quite as valuable as a tackle, but he's going to get a huge payday just simply off of what he can do pass blocking. And he's going to go to a great team that can either throw the ball really well, or he's going to be in a play action setting where he's going to be one-on-one against some of the best interior linemen, defensive linemen, blocking them in the passing game. And I think he's the difference maker in that position.
Yeah, no, I love Thuney. I think he's great. I think here's my one concern is, there's a long list of guys who have played very well for the Patriots, and then once they go to a new team, it doesn't work out as well. Are you concerned at all about something like that happening?
I guess a little bit. I feel like a lot of the Patriots players that don't work out to me are more of the skill position guys because they look for a particular set of skill position players, particularly wide receivers like the Deion Branch types and all that, that when they go elsewhere, it's kind of a different scheme where it's hard to get the best out of a player who plays a completely different offense. I don't think offensive lineman is going to be that common to where he's leading. Obviously, with Scarnecchia being in New England, there's a lot of hype behind Scarnecchia and the offensive line coaching there. But I think he's going to be able to take that to a new team and be really good and be really successful elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think my counter to that would be, what about Nate Soldier? I mean, he hasn't been bad for the Giants, but he definitely hasn't necessarily lived up to the contract he got.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. I was very happy when Nate Soldier left. I felt like when he was in New England, he started taking steps back, and he started looking like he was kind of beat up. And, you know, to me, that was out at the right time for New England. And usually when they're doing these cost cutting moves, it is because we're getting rid of maybe a year too early rather than 2 years too late. But I still feel like Thuney has a lot of good football left in him. I don't feel like he was taking regressing at all as of last year, and I still think he can be a very reliable lineman.
All right. Well, I do not hate that pick at all. He was definitely on my board. Now here with let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, the 8th overall pick, my 4th pick. I'm gonna go with somebody who had a career year last year, and that was Eric Armstead. Now, he had never been really a household name whatsoever. He was always kind of a solid role player. Last year, he broke out, had 10 sacks. It seems like San Francisco is going to say we do have an abundance of pass rushers. We'll let him go to free agency. I do think this is the kind of it's one of those guys where he's done this for 1 year. So who knows if this is someone who maybe isn't quite as good as maybe his last year stats will tell you. But at the same time, his last year stats were very good. And if he can be a consistent 10 sack guy, that just has so much value.
I think he's actually in a position where a team's going to be really happy they get him for the number they get him for, because not only did he put together a pretty good year last year, he's still behind guys on my list like a Jadeveon Clowney, like a Shaq Barrett, like a Yannick Ngakoue.
Right?
I can't remember if I say his name right.
Yeah, that's good. You got
it. Yeah. So he's going to be taken behind those guys, and he might be able to be just as effective as a guy like Ngakoue or Barrett, and he's going to be at half the cost. And someone's going to be thrilled that they get him at that number potentially, and I think that's going to be a steal for one team down the line, as people are looking for their 4th or 5th option for an edge rusher, and that's going to be him.
Yeah, exactly. And Ngakoue, it was between those two guys. I actually think that they're very similarly talented players. I think that I think Armstead can be a consistent 10 sack guy, and the contract was why I went with Armstead over Ngakoue. So now for the 9th overall pick, your last pick, who do you got?
I need a guy who's going to do the dirty work. I'm going to need a guy who just works the middle of the field, is able to stuff some running plays for me, take on 2 or 3 guys. So I'm going with DJ Reader with this one. The defensive tackle out of Houston, obviously, his numbers aren't going to blow off the page, but that's just because his role is to take up space, and he's really good at taking up space.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think that it's one of those things where it's the fans might not notice you, but your opposing teams definitely will when they game plan. He's definitely going to, I think, get a big payday. Very good player. And now we'll move on to my number 10 pick. I just mentioned him. Might as well just bring him up. It's going to be Yannick Ngakoue. I just think that for Jacksonville, he has been a very good player. He's also someone similar to Armstead, where he has played in a good system. But I mean, I was watching tape from him when I made a video not too long ago about him. And I mean, Josh Allen, his big selling point when the Jaguars drafted him was he's fast. He has the speed. And Ngakoue just making him look slow out there with how quick he is. I mean, he's definitely got all the tools to be a great player. It seems like he will get traded. So it's kind of like, is he really a free agent, or is he because he's going to get tagged? But yeah, I think if we're putting him on this list, he definitely deserves to be on the list, I think.
Yeah, he was also on my list, and the pick makes a lot of sense. I think at the end of the day, what's going to happen is he's actually a guy that I think is going to get signed by somebody else and put together a really big year, just because I feel like anybody who's going to lead that Jacksonville situation is going to be really good next year because of how bad that Jacksonville situation was. So
was it so bad though? Was the defensive line so bad though? Because I feel like that's kind of the one area where it might actually have been a good thing to play for.
I still feel like, I don't think the talent was bad, but I still feel like that overall it seemed kind of like a toxic situation that nobody was really happy to be at. And I think he's made comments this offseason about, somebody come get me or something like that. And this is a situation where I do think that that there are players out of Jacksonville that are going to be able to hit another level. Because I think, what did he end up with, 8 sacks last year? And I think that's
I'll check. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. But yeah, I think he's going to be one of those guys from that team that steps up and performs at a very high level because he is a premier level pass rusher when he's engaged, and who knows actually how engaged everyone was in Jacksonville last year.
That's a very good point. Yeah, he had 8 sacks last year. He had 9.5 in 2018. Also had an interception last year. So, yeah, definitely a talented player. So, just rereading the list, we had Clowney go number 1, Shaq Barrett number 2, Anthony Harris 3. Then it was Anthony Costanzo 4, Derrick Henry 5, had Jack Conklin 6, Thurney 7, Eric Armstead 8, and then DJ Reader followed up by Yannick Ngakoue. So that's the list. A couple honorable mentions, Byron Jones on there. But there's some stats that I'm looking at that just makes me, it's sort of a buyer beware. For one thing, in his time with Dallas, he's given up 20 interceptions to just 2 interceptions, or excuse me, 20 touchdowns to just 2 interceptions, which is definitely not a great stat. Also has an passer rating against of 97, which granted he's going up against number 1 receivers. It's going to be higher than a number 2 corner. But still, I think that there's actually something that it's a theory I have about the Dallas Cowboys, which is I think that because they play in such a big market, that now all of their good players get talked about as if they're great players and they get bigger contracts. What do you think about that theory?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of with it too. I wasn't really honestly overly impressed with Amari Cooper last year either. Obviously he had that hot stress as soon as he got traded to Dallas, and everyone was going crazy about, oh, this is an elite level guy all of a sudden. But not that he was bad in Oakland, but he was, he looked like a number 2 receiver in Oakland, and there was a lot of stretches this year where he looked like a number 2 receiver, and he's going to get paid like a number 1 guy. I'm not really for that, and I'm kind of in the same way with Jones. It's really hard to tell really what the ceiling is for this guy, because he's talked about that he should be a top 5 cornerback in football, but I don't see a top 5 cornerback out of him. And I don't really know, is this going to be another situation where Jerry Jones is going to be the only person dumb enough to pay him? And so he's just going to wait till Jerry pays him? Because it kind of seems like that's the direction everyone's going in with these Dallas players.